There's a moment, small and almost invisible, when something feels slightly wrong. Not dangerous, not urgent, just off. A sentence that lingers longer than it should. A look that feels misplaced. A pattern that doesn't quite make sense. Most of the time, we dismiss it. We tell ourselves we're overthinking. We don't want to seem paranoid. We don't want to accuse. We don't want to disrupt normal life. So we continue. Until later, when hindsight rearranges everything, and what once felt small becomes obvious. In each of these cases, the warning signs were present long before anything collapsed, but they were quiet, subtle, easy to ignore.
The house sat at the far edge of a quiet suburban block. It wasn't neglected. The lawn was trimmed, the trash bins were placed out on time. Packages arrived regularly. Curtains were drawn neatly each evening. The man who lived there moved in quietly. He introduced himself to two neighbors. He shook hands. He smiled politely. His voice was soft, controlled. He worked from home, he explained. That detail alone made sense. Many people did. But over time, the rhythms of the house felt different. He was rarely seen outside during daylight hours. Groceries were delivered, not unusual, but they were delivered often. Hardware shipments came weekly. Heavy boxes, always carried directly into the garage. The garage door would close immediately after. At night, lights glowed beneath the garage frame long after midnight. One neighbor mentioned hearing metallic sounds, steady, repetitive, mechanical. Another noticed a faint chemical-like smell drifting briefly across the yard on cool evenings. But no one wanted to overreact. He wasn't loud, he wasn't aggressive, he wasn't social, but that wasn't a crime. Months passed. Then came the first real discomfort. A delivery driver reported unusual instructions: leave packages at the side entrance only, never ring the bell. A utility technician later flagged extreme electricity usage, far beyond what the size of the house suggested. Even then, it felt abstract, until a warrant was executed. Inside the garage, investigators discovered equipment consistent with illegal weapons manufacturing. Detailed notebooks were found, blueprints, research, lists of potential targets. Nothing had happened yet, but preparation had. Neighbors later replayed memories, the late-night sounds, the isolation, the chemical scent. It wasn't that they hadn't noticed, it was that each detail alone felt too small to justify concern. The warnings were quiet, and quiet is easy to ignore.
She was ambitious, focused, careful. When she secured an internship at a respected financial firm, it felt like the beginning of something stable. The office was modest but professional. Clean desks, framed certifications on the wall, quiet efficiency. Her supervisor was confident, articulate, composed, reassuring. He spoke about mentorship, growth, opportunity. At first, everything aligned. Then came small shifts. Meetings moved later into the evening. Emails were marked confidential without explanation. He began requesting she handle specific transaction logs personally to streamline workflow. He praised her often, too often. He discouraged her from asking senior staff questions. She's still learning, he'd tell others gently. She noticed inconsistencies in figures, minor ones, small rounding errors, transfers that seemed to circle back into internal accounts. When she asked, he smiled. It's complex structuring. You'll understand later. There was no anger in his tone, just calm authority. Weeks passed. Then she was asked to delete archived files to clear space. The request lingered in her mind. It felt wrong, but she rationalized it. He had built the firm. He had clients who trusted him. He had awards. When the audit began, it wasn't dramatic, just questions. Then more questions. Then, panic. Hundreds of thousands of dollars had been siphoned slowly over years. The interns had unknowingly been positioned as administrative buffers, isolated from oversight. When interviewed, several employees admitted they had noticed irregularities before. But profits were steady, clients were satisfied. No one wanted to challenge the structure. The warnings were professional, polite, plausible, and that made them harder to confront.
The lake house was seasonal, used in summer, dark in winter. That was the pattern. The family visited from another state. They kept the property well maintained, but rarely checked it off-season. Locals noticed things first. A different vehicle parked in the driveway in November. Smoke rising from the chimney in January. Lights flickering behind blinds during heavy snow. But vacation homes sometimes had caretakers, or renters, or relatives. The neighbors told themselves it was temporary. Then, online listings began appearing, advertising the same lake house for exclusive private winter stays. Deposits were requested quickly, payment up front. Families across multiple states sent funds. When they arrived weeks later, the house was locked, empty, unavailable. Police traced the scheme back to a single occupant who had been illegally residing there for months. He had studied property tax databases, identified seasonal homes unlikely to be checked, used them as backdrops for digital rental fraud. When arrested, he admitted something telling. No one asked why I was there. The warnings had been visible. Different car, winter smoke, unfamiliar movement. But each observation felt like someone else's responsibility. The lake remained quiet. The neighborhood remained polite. And silence protected the deception.
He was disciplined, motivational, precise. Clients admired his structure. He tracked progress carefully. He pushed limits. He built loyalty. He also built exclusivity, private packages, premium tiers, limited access coaching. Some clients felt pressured to upgrade. The tone was subtle, framed as opportunity. If you're serious, you'll commit. A few members quietly left. No complaints filed, just departures. Management noticed minor tensions but valued the revenue he generated. Over time, patterns emerged. Payments routed through personal accounts, contracts rewritten after signing, promises of investment fitness portfolios that didn't exist. Clients who questioned him were told they lacked dedication. It wasn't overt aggression. It was slow boundary shifting, gradual normalization. By the time authorities intervened, dozens had lost savings. Most admitted something similar. It felt uncomfortable, but I didn't want to seem difficult. The warnings weren't explosive, they were persuasive, and persuasion is harder to challenge than force. Night highways create vulnerability. When a car stalls, isolation intensifies every sound. So when flashing lights appear behind you, relief comes first. His truck looked official. Reflective decals, uniform shirt, professional tone. He arrived quickly, often before official tow services. He asked few questions. He worked efficiently. Drivers were grateful. Then small reports surfaced. Missing wallets, disappearing jewelry, unexplained card charges days later. Police reviewed traffic cameras. He had been monitoring public accident channels, arriving early to position himself as first responder. Cash payments only, no digital invoices. He targeted night calls. One driver later said, "I felt something was off, but I was stranded. I didn't think I had options." His record revealed prior theft charges under a different name. The warnings were there. No company verification, no official branding registry, no receipts. But emergencies reduce skepticism. Relief overrides caution, and vulnerability creates opportunity. Closing reflection. The pattern. None of these stories began loudly. No sirens, no shouting, no immediate chaos. They began with discomfort, with small observations, with moments that felt too minor to confront. We often believe danger announces itself clearly, but more often it whispers, through patterns, through repetition, through intuition. The warning signs don't always demand attention. They wait for someone willing to notice.
Which case felt the most obvious in hindsight? Have you ever ignored a small warning because it felt easier than asking questions? If you value slow, cinematic, true crime storytelling without sensationalism, subscribe for the next episode. Because sometimes the signs are there, and sometimes the difference is simply whether we choose to see them.